All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Paige. I am a registered dietitian, and today we are going to be cooking pumpkin nachos as well as a cantaloupe salsa. And I'm going to quickly put in the chat the ingredients list so you guys can see and follow along. Now, today I have a very large pumpkin. Ideally, you would be working with something a little bit smaller. And if you are working with a smaller pumpkin, you can pop it in the microwave for about 2 minutes. That's going to help them soften it for cutting. But before we start cutting, you want to make sure that you have a good workspace. And so you're going to want to make sure that your cutting board is secure and you have a really good sharp knife, especially for these winter squashes are a little bit harder. So you want to make sure you have a nice sharp knife to cut through. And you want to make sure that you don't have any clothing that's like loose. So you want to make sure that you're not, that's not getting in the way. So without any further ado, we're going to start working on our pumpkin nachos. The pumpkin nachos start with 4 cups of fresh pumpkin. And so we're going to cut up our pumpkin. You want to start, you can first cut off the top. That's easier. I'm going to try and cut through this one. It is a little bit larger. So I'm just going to put my knife in there. And I'm going to try and cut this guy in half. And then once you get all the way through, let's see, you're gonna separate the 2 halves. I'm not gonna need all of this, so I'm gonna use the rest of my pumpkin for another recipe. There we go. We have our 2 halves. I'm going to get rid of this one for now. We have all of our insides, and I'm going to scoop them out and put them in a bowl. If you want, you can always keep the seeds and roast those. They're a delicious snack. Get all those strings and seeds right out. I always like to have close by a bowl, and I put all my scraps in my bowl. Keeps everything nice and tidy, and easy to work with.
And Paige, and is a raw pumpkin? You're gonna bake it?
Yeah, we're gonna first peel the outside, the skin off of the pumpkin, and then we will roast it. And that reminds me, thank you for reminding me, we're gonna preheat the oven to 400. First things first. Yeah, so preheat your oven to 400 so that you can roast your pumpkin. And then we will be cubing this after we take off the skin of the pumpkin. And there's multiple ways you can take off the skin. I'm going to show you one and tell you about another. Okay, almost got everything out. And the recipe calls for 2 cups or sorry, 4 cups of fresh pumpkin. I'm going to be doing a little bit less than that today because I'm going to be doing a portion size for 1 person. But if you were to be doing the full nacho plate, then you would want to roast 4 cups. Okay, I almost got the insides all out. I'll get the rest after I cut. Okay, so now you're going to take your pumpkin and you're going to just cut a piece, and you'll have it like that size, and you can use a peeler and you can peel the skin off of it, or if you have a paring knife, you can also cut off the skin with a paring knife. Today I'm going to try with a peeler, see how that goes, and then if that doesn't work, then I'm going to try with because my peeler is not so sharp. I'm going to try with a paring knife. All right. Get all these scraps out of the way. So you can just take your peeler, peel off the skin. And then we'll cube it. There we go. And if your peeler is wider, it's a little easier, sharper. So I might have to switch to the paring knife. Now let me give that one a go. Nice, and it's okay if you get some of like the actual pumpkin part. That's okay. Gonna keep on peeling. Really helpful to have a sharp peeler because the skin is quite tough. It also works with the paring knife. This one I'm not going to use. So 1 cup of cooked pumpkin provides about 49 calories. It's gonna give you 12 grams of carbs. It's going to have 3 grams of fiber. It's going to be rich in beta carotene, which converts to vitamin A. So this is considered a low calorie food. And you can also roast it for a salad. So this roasting for nachos can be used for many other recipes. You can throw it on top of a arugula salad with a little lime drizzled on top of it. And yeah, any salad really you could just throw it on top of. Makes it really easy to incorporate. You can also make, and I've yet to try this, but a pumpkin curry. And I've ordered it numerous times at a restaurant, but I've never actually made it. But something I'm going to try this fall with pumpkin. So another thing to try with your pumpkin. So now I'm going to cut the pumpkin into cubes. And you want to like about a 1/2 inch cube, and some skin still on that little piece. And try and get them as uniform as possible so that they cook evenly. I'm just going to cut this in half so that they're all about the same size. There you go. Make sure this is all that. All right. This one is gonna... That has a little skin. We'll leave that one out. All right, and we've got our pumpkin all cubed up. And so next we're going to put this on our pan. We're gonna lightly drizzle this with olive oil, and we're gonna salt and pepper it. Put this on my pan. I'm going to use a little less than the recipe called for as far as olive oil, since I'm using more like pumpkin. But you can just lightly drizzle your pumpkin with some olive oil. I'm going to move it around too so that it coats the bottom. That one's pretty big, and I'll cut that one in half. Next, I'm going to salt it. Lightly sprinkle some salt on there. I'm going to some pepper on it. And then it is ready to pop in the oven. Mine is just a little bit, it's close to being preheated, so I'll hold off on putting it in. Actually, I'll put it in and we'll just keep an eye on it. And that roasts for 25 minutes to 30 minutes. And as soon as that's done, we will lower the oven to 350. So I'm going to set a timer for 25 minutes and we'll take a look after that. All right, timer set for 25 minutes. And while that's cooking, we are going to start on our cantaloupe salsa. So first, actually, sorry, we are not going to start on that. We are going to cut some of our toppings for our nachos, and then we will start our cantaloupe. So I like some black olives. I know this is a controversial subject on whether or not black olives go on nachos, but I am in the camp of black olives on your nachos. So I'm going to cut up some of these olives for my nachos and set those aside, and we'll put them on top of our nachos at the end of it. You can put any toppings on top of your nachos that you like. I know I'm gonna put jalapenos on mine, black olives, green peppers, you know, whatever you like on your nachos, you can put on there. I usually do a plant-based sour cream after I've roasted them, but I'm not going to today, but sometimes I'll do that. I do have a plant-based cheese. I will be using that. All right, that's enough for the olives. I'm going to grab some green onions. All right, next I'm going to chop up a jalapeno. You can seed it or not. I like my jalapeno a little spicier, so I'm not going to seed it for my nachos, but we are going to be using the jalapeno again for our salsa, and that I will not. I will seed that for the salsa. And that's it as far as what I have for my toppings for my nachos. So now we are ready to start making our cantaloupe salsa. So first you want to take your cantaloupe and it's going to be around 2 cups of cantaloupe that we are cooking. So you're going to want to cut your cantaloupe right down the middle. I'm actually going to take a quick rag and wipe down my board real quick. Got some pumpkin on it. Excuse me. The jalapeno is strong. All right. So again, I'm going to scoop out the insides of the cantaloupe. much easier with a cantaloupe. Okay. Cut it into large pieces, and then we're going to take it off the rind. So, and this might be baked, so you might want to have them uniform in size when we cut up our cantaloupe, but it won't matter as much. More for ease of eating. All right, so now I'm going to start dicing up my cantaloupe. I'm not going to use all of this cantaloupe since for the other half of it, since I'm not going to be doing the full recipe. Cut these up in a little bit smaller pieces. Cantaloupe is rich also in vitamin A and C, and rich in potassium as well. Of course, you've got that fiber. Same with the pumpkin. The fiber is going to help you with bowel movements as well as cholesterol, lowering your cholesterol. The vitamin C is good for helping with your immunity. It also helps with tissue repair. Antioxidant as well as the vitamin A, which helps also with eyesight. Just getting these small enough for your salsa. Put some of this in the bowl. Cantaloupe looks really good. perfectly right. Something about trying new recipes is there's always some different recipe with all the same ingredients, and so you can always try new things, like a cantaloupe salsa if you've never tried that before, some pumpkin nachos. We're almost done with chopping up our cantaloupe. Bowl's getting pretty full. Right, so now that we have our cantaloupe, we're gonna chop up our jalapeno. We're gonna dice that up. So the best way going about this is, one, you want to make sure that you don't touch your eyes or your mouth or anything after you're handling your jalapeno. But I like to cut just one side of my jalapeno off like that, and then I'm going to cut around to make sure that I'm not getting any of those seeds. And there we go. So now the recipe calls for one whole jalapeno. I use a little for the nachos, but the rest of it I'm going to use for our salsa. I'm also not doing a full recipe today for the cantaloupe salsa. So you can just cut these up into little matchsticks, and then we'll be dicing those. So you gather your jalapenos and just dice them like so. And of course, if you want more or less jalapeno, just depending on how much you want to spicy. You can also keep the seeds too. That will make it a little spicier. Okay, so now we're going to take our red bell pepper, and it only calls for 2 tablespoons of it, so you only need a very little bit of it. I'm just going to cut off the end like so, cut off the inside. Do the same thing as we did with the jalapeno. Cut them and then we'll match it. Right, now it's about a tablespoon, so I'm doing a little less than the recipe. And then for the lime, we're doing, I'm doing a tablespoon, but it calls for 2. And about a tablespoon is about a half a lime. So, and I may even do another half of a lime because I like the flavor of lime. So I'm gonna put another tablespoon. So you can kind of just gauge how you like it, put more or less lime in there. And then next, cucumber, and I've already washed all of my vegetables. So if you haven't yet, wash all your vegetables. And as far as the cucumber goes, I like to keep my skin on my cucumber. It has a little extra fiber, so you can peel it or not. I'm going to keep mine on. And for the cucumber, it's a half of a cucumber, so I'm going to do about a quarter. All right, next we have our cilantro, about 3 tablespoons. I've already washed my cilantro. I'm just going to chop it finely and put it in my sauce. And then we have about a quarter of a red onion. And this way going about this is, and we're going to dice it, is you first cut off the end, not where the root is. And you're going to cut down the middle of it. And you want to peel off that outer layer. Do a couple layers. The best way of going about dicing a red onion, clean this off real quick, is you are going to first cut down the onion a few lines, And then you're also going to cut in it that way, and then we'll cut in it this way. So there's 3 different directions that we're going to be cutting. You need to cut it along this way. And you don't go all the way through because you want it to hold together. I'm just going to cut like that. Then you can cut it like so. And if you like press against the onion, you'll hold it better together. So now, once we start chopping, it's going to be nice and fine. Put that in. All right. Ooh, the onion is strong. And so just gonna do a little more because it's 1/4 of a red onion, and I did about 1/8 of a red onion. So now it's salt and pepper to taste. I'll sprinkle a little bit of salt in here. Pepper. Mix this all up. All those beautiful colors. It's like a pico de gallo, but with cantaloupe. It smells so good. We're just gonna let this sit for a little bit. Let the lime juice kind of marinate it. That's good to go, and we will start assembling our nachos. We have about 3 more minutes for the pumpkins to roast, but in the meantime, we can assemble what we're going to be putting back into the oven for another 10 minutes. So as far as the tortilla chips, you'll want to do about 13 ounces. I'm just doing 1 portion size for me, and you can layer this really any way that you want to. I am first going to put some black beans on. They've already been rinsed. So if you're trying to lower your sodium intake just by rinsing your beans, your canned beans, you'll reduce the sodium amount about 40%. But of course, if you have dried beans, it's going to be a lot less sodium since they won't have the salt that's been in the juice. So next, I'm going to put some plant-based cheese. You can put regular cheese if you eat regular cheese. This plant-based is by Field Roast, and it's made out of potato and cornstarch with tofu. So I'm going to put my jalapenos on here because I do want them to roast. That's perfect. And the rest of my toppings, I might put some olives to roast, but I'm going to sprinkle some of them on after they roast. This already looks so good. And I am going to put a little salsa on here, some regular red salsa, and let that roast. Any salsa will do. Right. Our pumpkin, it should be ready now, and we will also layer that on top of our nachos, and we'll roast them for another 10 minutes on 350. Check these guys out. And they do look done. Sprinkle my pumpkin on top of my nachos. And I'll throw these back in the oven, or throw them into the oven. And we will bake them for 8 minutes, 8 to 10, depending on your cheese, how much cheese you put. So I'm gonna set my timer for 8 minutes. And we're gonna take a quick 8-minute break, and we will come back and see our nachos.
That looks
All
delicious.
right. We are back, and here we have our pumpkin nachos with our cantaloupe, still very hot, our cantaloupe salsa, and I'm gonna give it a go, see how it turns out. I actually don't know if I can eat the pumpkin. It's so hot right now. Did a small piece of it, their cantaloupe. Very good. I think I'll add a little more salt, but other than that, very delicious. Always try new recipes whenever you can. Cooking is an experiment, so you never know what you're gonna like. And you know, for the pumpkin, you can try different recipes and see how you might like it. I know these nachos are really good and a good way to incorporate some more fiber into your nachos. So thank you guys so much for joining, and I look forward for next season when we start our cook-alongs up again. Thank you again. We'll see you guys soon. Bye.